It's always fun. Hopefully the intro will play. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic Podcast. I'm really excited about my guest today. Today I have with me the owner, the host, and producer of the Forbidden Knowledge News podcast and the owner of the Forbidden Knowledge News Network. I have with me Chris Mathieu. I consider him a good friend. And also I consider him, he was an inspiration for when I wanted to get into podcasting. I was watching his show a lot. I was watching shows like his and Leak Project and stuff like that. And you know, obviously Art Bell, but that they were inspiration for what I do. And yeah, Chris gets deep into the conspiracy realms and stuff like that. And I'm always happy to have him on the show. And yeah, Chris, thanks so much for coming back on, man. How are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me back on, Robert. I love our conversations and looking forward to getting weird again.
I know, right? So yeah, I figured maybe we could talk about May 4th first. You said something really important happened on May 4th, and I heard it, but I don't think my audience heard it yet.
Sure, yeah. Well, I've probably told all the other strange occurrences that I have put myself through via consciousness exploration, specifically magic mushrooms. And most of this it started out as, you know, a healing process for myself. And then it became research and learning. And a lot of it was, especially more recently, research for my upcoming film, Doors of Perception. And we can mention a little bit about that later. But basically, I had been putting myself through very high doses of psilocybin for about 3 years now, at least once a month, and went through very profound healing processes and had amazing experiences. And it really all culminated with this one event on this past May 4th that just passed by. And it really led me to some very deeper understandings about myself, my own spiritual path, and a better idea of the possibilities of what could be happening on a larger spiritual scale in the realms beyond our perception. And I think that what occurs there has a huge effect on our material reality and may possibly be more real than this reality at times, but we'll get into that too. So on May the 4th, and by the way, this was really the last time I had used mushrooms for this type of exploration. I don't really use them anymore. If somebody offers them in the future, or maybe I just want to revisit, I don't have a problem doing that, but I really don't use the magic mushrooms anymore. And I feel like they have served their purpose as for now with what I was trying to achieve. And just a brief recap of everything. Whenever I first started doing Forbidden Knowledge News is a little bit after that, a couple of years after that is when I started the consciousness exploration. And that was based off of a meditative spiritual experience, led me to connect with my higher self, and the mushroom experiences enhanced my journey a bit and was able to put me on a fast track to doing things that I really wanted to do, self-healing, learning about myself, and getting to a position where I am now. Basically, I owe so much of where I am now to what I'm doing to my consciousness exploration. So getting to May 4th, it was just like any other day. May the 4th be with you all. I woke up in the, that day, and I was, had a kind of uneasy feeling for some reason. Didn't know why. My fiance at the time, my now wife, was looking at things to do that day. She offered a metaphysical fair that was in town, and I was like, sure, I usually enjoy going to those things. And the entire time on the way there, the feeling of uneasiness grew, and I felt just this annoyance and kind of a strange fear for some reason, and I couldn't pinpoint why. The whole car ride there, it was very strange. These synchronistic songs kept coming on. I was trying to listen to something to listen to, and they were all very sad and depressing songs. Didn't really think anything of it, just ended up turning off the radio. Get to the metaphysical fair, and the feeling is even stronger. And I'm like, I wonder if there's just something here that's putting off bad juju. I don't know. So I go in there and I kind of walk around and get a feel for everything. And it doesn't seem like there's anything shady going on. I don't get any bad feelings from anyone, sense any bad energies or anything. And we're just walking around, and my wife sees a booth with this lady, this kind older lady who is doing aura photography. And for those that aren't familiar, they snap a picture of you with a special camera, and it shows your aura. And she then breaks it down and does an interpretation of what she sees. And my wife suggested that I do it. And for some reason, there's something inside me saying, if you do that, you're not going to like what happens after. And I'm just like, oh, whatever. So I kind of push the feeling aside and I go and do it. And she takes the picture, and I'm waiting for it to develop and looking at everybody else's. And they all have, nice, bright, shiny auras around them and look very interesting. I've never really done any research or looked into what the colors of the aura mean or anything. So she started to break down mine, and they had some unusual colors that I hadn't seen in the other ones. It looked like a rainbow going around my head. It was very, very interesting. And she said that she started to read my aura, and she said that I had a very powerful throat chakra and had no problem speaking my piece. And it was very accurate what she was saying so far. And I should preface this with the basic spiritual understanding that I had going into this. And it wasn't really much of one. I was kind of lost with what is really happening in this reality. Is this some sort of holographic simulated reality where we are light beings that chose to come in here? Are we trapped in some archonic soul harvesting form? Is God some eternal being that created us, or is it the universe itself? I had no answers when it came to any of those really big questions, and that's really what I had been seeking my whole life. And I still wasn't there, but I felt like I had an understanding of a lot of spiritual concepts and a lot of belief systems, but I didn't know what was what. And I'm not going to say I do now, but I have a much stronger foundation after this experience and everything that unfolded after. Going back to the aura photography, the lady gets to reading mine, and she's pretty accurate, like I said. And at the time, my producer Cory was there with us, and he's probably the least spiritual person you could ever meet. Does not believe in anything paranormal and metaphysical. Very fact-based researcher, and he comes running up, and he was just kind of being stupid, and he's like, is he gonna be rich? We're gonna be rich. And the lady's like, no, as of now he has too many unresolved beliefs. And I'm like, what the hell does that mean? And I just kind of took offense to it. I don't know why. And we went on, but that kind of like that offended feeling and wondering why she said that was festering deep inside me. And I didn't know what was going on. And it was just bothering me. And so we ended up leaving, and I still had this feeling. And I'm like, this is something I really need to figure out. I think this means something. So it was actually around the time that I was going to go and do my monthly mushroom experience anyway. So I figured, hey, why not? Maybe I can get some answers about what this is all about, why this is making me feel so strange and weird, what she said. So I take my usual dose, I think it's about 4 or 5 grams that time. And excuse me, when I had these experiences about an hour or so in, I can communicate with what I understand as my higher self. And I have a greater understanding now of what that is and was and always has been. But I considered it to be my higher self, an all-knowing or very powerful part of your inner subconscious that may be connected to a field of information that you don't have access to. So I make connection with the higher self. And usually at this time is when I start getting information either about myself or things I should be doing or questions that I have or things I'm doing wrong that I shouldn't be. And it's usually, and all the times before this were a very informative, basically conversation with the higher self. And this time it was not. It was very unusual. And this is what I got. There's really nothing for us to talk about right now. Don't worry about it. Just go and enjoy your evening or something along those lines. And this has never really happened in this experience. And I was very kind of shocked by that. And I said, all right, whatever. I'll just, the higher self don't want to give me information. I'll, go watch TV. Haven't really, had a psychedelic experience, especially with what I've been doing with mushrooms and just like watched a movie or listen to music. It's usually in a meditative state with tones and it's for a purpose. This had a purpose, but the purpose was kind of rejected by my higher self. So I just go and my producer was still there at the time. He was over for a bit and he's like, hey, let's go watch a movie. So we're in my living room, we're watching a movie, and I start to get this weird, uneasy feeling again. And it's like, I'm going to go outside and get some air. So we both go outside. We're sitting on my outside patio and we're talking. And as we're talking, the experience becomes very intense. And I start to see like this image bubble on the side of my head. I can look over and see, I can look at him too. And I look over and see this scene unfolding, but it's the conversation that we're having now, but it was in my past lives. And I just intuitively knew that. And it wasn't like this was just showing me that I had this same life experience multiple times, which was very strange. I considered reincarnation could be that amongst many other lifetimes, but I think it's much more. I think there's many experiences unfolding at the same time, but this was showing me that I had lived this particular lifetime many, 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 many times before. And it was very large number as far as I could remember. And I started to get concerned by it. Now I was telling him what I was seeing. I was like, man, we've done this so many times before in past lives. Now this is where it gets a little weirder. During this experience, there were multiple times where I'm talking to Cory and something else like takes over my perception and I'm no longer talking to him. It looks like him. It sounds like him, but the things he's saying are not what he's really saying. And I confirmed it by asking him about it the following day. Did you say this and this and this? And he's like, no, what the hell are you talking about? So every once in a while, something would take over and like speak for him. And he doesn't remember saying anything. Apparently he was saying something else. And as I was telling him about the multiple lives I saw unfolding, I was like, yeah, we've done this so many times before. He's like, yeah, but it gets refined each time, doesn't it? And I just thought that's so unfair. He wouldn't say anything like that. And it was very weird, but it was so profound. And I'm like, yeah, it really seems like this time is going a lot better than the other times. And as I was saying that, I just start to get this download of information. And I started to get angry for some reason at like the rest of humanity for not doing their part, for not taking responsibility, just all these things that I don't know why it just came out. And I started telling him about, why couldn't the rest of humanity do this and this and this and we get out of this situation? And I was kind of angrily telling him this. And again, something else spoke through him and said, well, at some point it becomes a reflection of yourself. And it just made so much sense to me and it resonated so deeply. And I said, wow, that does make a lot of sense. And I just kind of shut up and then everything changed. It seemed like the air was sucked out of the room and I got this dreadful feeling, a knowing really. I just, I don't know how, I just knew it. I knew I had died just then. And it was overwhelmingly evident that it was something was telling me that I was dead. And Cory's just sitting there across from me, just staring at me, not saying anything, looking very strange. And I get this knowing that I'm dead. And I'm like, I'm dead? And he's like, are you dead? And I said, well, shit, no, this can't be. Can I go back? He's like, well, if you go back, you have to start all over from the beginning. And I said, fuck, no, hell no, I am not doing this again. No, no, no. And I was like, okay, can I go back to where I was? Can I go back to, I thought I was talking to God or something. I don't know who Cory was at this moment, but I'm like, can I go back? He apparently knew something that I didn't. And he's like, I don't know. Can you go back? And he just walks away. He goes downstairs, and I'm like freaking out, and I follow him. And by the time I get downstairs to ask him what's going on, I could tell it's just him again. It's just Cory. It's not whatever I was speaking to before. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. You're tripping. Let's go watch TV. And I could just tell it's him again. It's normal. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? And I still have this feeling that I'm dead. We're going to watch TV, and I'm like, no, this is just a bad trip. It's just a bad trip. Just a bad trip. All of a sudden, this demon face comes out of the TV, and I look over at Cory, and he is like a corpse, dude. His skin there's no color. He's got dark, sunken in eyes, and he's like dead. And he looks over at me, and he says, all you got to do is just watch TV, man. And I absolutely freaked out. I went to the back, and I woke up my wife, and I was looking at her, and guess what? She looks dead too. No color, sunken in eyes, and she's like cursing and saying these things that she wouldn't say. And the feeling just kept saying, you're dead, man. You're dead. And I'm like, oh shit, I have to be dead, because this is not my reality, and this would never happen. Maybe, I'm the first mushroom overdose, I guess. That's what I was thinking. So I run outside, man, to my backyard, and it's like darker than I've ever seen it. And I'm looking around the neighborhood, and there's no lights on for some reason. Nobody has their lights on. It wasn't even that late. And I'm like, what? Oh, okay. So maybe I screwed up somewhere along the way. Maybe, if this is hell, I'm in hell. Maybe I didn't accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I didn't have a belief. That's what that lady said. I didn't believe in anything. And I freaked out, and I was like, what do I do? And I just thought, well, you're dead, so maybe you could find God out here. I was like, yeah, made sense. So I start walking down the street. I'm like, I'm in the afterlife. I got to walk till I find God. And I start walking down the street, dude. And as I do, I start having a legit life review, like memories of everything, and all the good, all the bad, everything I've done. And I'm walking, I'm like, this is going to be a long night, man. And I was like accepting it somehow. It's like, I guess I'm dead. It's cool. Whatever. I'll just find God. So I start walking, and I look, and there's a crossroads. I can either turn left, and there's like cop lights on the main highway down the road. And I'm like, oh, I don't think I want to go there, because if this is like the afterlife authorities, they'd probably bring me to the devil or hell. I don't want to go there. So I go the opposite direction. I'm walking, and again, there's a crossroad. I can go straight, which has a row of very brightly lit street lights, very welcoming. And I think I'm gonna go that way. I look that other way, the other option. It's pretty dark. There's a slight glow in the distance, but I'm like, nah, that doesn't look good. So I start to walk under the street lights, and this is the first one, dude, I walk under. It goes out immediately as I walk under it. And I guess, I took it as a sign, don't go this way. So I turn around, and I start going down the darker road. I'm walking down the street, and it seems like the street is the longest street in the world, never going to end. And I see people walking by, and it seems like they're whispering things to each other, and they look like dead, like everyone else did. And I'm like, I don't know what I got to do. How do I get to heaven? How do I get out of this? I lied. I surrendered. I lied down in the middle of the road. And at this point, there was no one around. There was no cars around. Thank God. And I just lied there. And I look up at the sky, and the sky's beautiful. I could see all the stars and very brightly lit. And I'm like, well, if this is hell, the sky's kind of beautiful here. I don't know why that would be. And as I'm looking up there, I just feel this kind of sense of a little bit of calmness come over me, and this voice, the higher self, except it sounds a little more pronounced and, I don't know, regal, if you will. And the voice says, It's all about perspective, even in the afterlife. And I thought that was very interesting, and I liked that. And I sat up, and the voice said, "Stand up." I stood up and it said, "Look around, but close your eyes and find a light." So I did. I closed my eyes and I started looking around, and all I see at first is like demon mouths chomping everywhere, trying to eat me. And it's like, oh shit. So I do it again. I look around and I'm kind of spinning around, and I see this light in the distance, kind of overshining everything else, all the evil demons that I'm seeing. And I was like, I guess I gotta go that direction. So I start walking that direction. The street kind of curves, and it turns into like a brand new neighborhood that I don't ever remember being in. And we had recently just moved to this neighborhood at the time, so wasn't that familiar with the surroundings. And the houses were much larger and brightly lit and looked very welcoming. But there was this one house, man, that was like so lit up more than the others. It had a welcome sign that I could see like halfway down the street, and the porch lights were so bright. It had a big ass swing on the porch that looked so welcoming. And I'm like, all right, I don't know what to do here. So I'm going to go knock on one of these doors, and either somebody's going to call the cops and they'll bring me to the devil. I'm going to have some words. I'll just, I don't know. I'll tell them what I think. Or I'll knock on one of these doors. Maybe an angel will answer, and they'll bring me to heaven or whatever. Now, I grew up Catholic. I have, I had that lingering sense of dogma there, and eventually got into seeking everything, like as everybody that is familiar with me knows. But at this time, I'm thinking I'm either going to go to heaven or hell, depending on the decision I make, depending on what door I knock on. So I'm looking at this beautiful welcome sign at this house, and I'm like, all right, fuck it. And I walk up to the door, man. I ring the doorbell, and this beautiful blonde-haired lady answers the door, and she's like, "Can I help you?" And I said, "Is this where I'm supposed to be?" And she's like very confused, and she said, "Hold on a second." And she goes and she closes the door behind her. I'm waiting there a couple of minutes, and then the door opens, and there's this big man, and he's got this beautiful shining aura, and he looks so friendly and welcoming, and he says, "Son, can I help you?" And I said, "I think I'm dead." And he's just like, "Oh." He said, "Shake my hand." And I shook his hand, and he's like, "No, I don't think you're dead. Could be something else." And I'm like, "I don't know. I took some mushrooms. I don't know." He's like, "Okay, well, maybe that's it." And he's like, "Would you like to pray with me?" And I was like, "Yes." I'm thinking, this is it. This is the angel. We're going to pray, and I'm going to go to heaven. So we start praying, and I'm like crying, and it feels so amazing. And I feel like, I did it. I'm at peace. I made it. I found God, and I'm going to go home. And he's like, "You want to go home, son?" And I was like, yes, that's what this is about, right? And he's like, "Where do you live?" And I was like, "Wait, I live down there. I don't know how I'm supposed to get back there." And he's like, "What, to your house?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "I'll take you to your house. Come on. What's your address?" And he takes me to his truck, man, his big, white, beautiful chariot of a truck. And I'm still thinking, this is some kind of angel. He's going to bring me to heaven or whatever. We're riding, and we get into a conversation about what I do. And I don't remember the whole conversation. I remember saying that you're obviously a follower of Jesus. I got to give that dude a shout out on my show sometime. This was great. We end up pulling up in front of my house, and I'm like, how am I supposed to go back in there if, I'm thinking I'm dead? And he's like, "Well, you probably just should start by opening the door, see what happens." I'm like, all right. So I give him a big hug, man, and I get out of the car, and I'm scared to open the door, and I do. And there's my wife, and there's Cory, and they're normal again. And they're like, "Where the fuck were you?" They're freaking out. They were scared. They didn't know what happened. And I'm like, "Wait, I'm not dead." And man, I was just like, all right, I grabbed the whole bottle of wine. I started just like, we're going to put everything aside till tomorrow, man. I don't know what any of this means. I don't know what to do with any of this. So the next day I wake up, I'm thinking I'm going to go walk my dog, clear my head. And for some reason, I just jump in my car and I drive straight to their house. And I didn't even remember how I got there the previous night, but I drove there and I knock on the door and his wife answers again. She's like, Chris, I'm so glad you're okay. She gives me a big hug and we're talking and she's like, would you like to come to church with us? My husband is a preacher. And I was like, oh no, shit. And I was like, well, yeah, why not? I'd been to church in years. And I was like, I owe it this much for, this synchronous, whatever happened last night. I owe it to that to go to church today, at least. So I did. I went to this, went to their mass or church. And as soon as I sit down and get settled, I start to get the information. It just starts to come in and it's, the voice, the higher self telling me, it's like, I know you're confused. Maybe you need a little help understanding. And it just starts showing me everything I've done my whole life, then eventually making contact with it through meditation, it telling me to quit my job and do Forbidden Knowledge News as a career and showing me all the different people I've talked to and all the different esoteric and spiritual teachings I've learned and how they all made sense to me. And so, like everything seemed to make sense, have at least a puzzle piece to it. Even though there were contradicting things, I think that everything, well, the main message was that this is what I was supposed to be doing. This experience was about leading me to God, leading me to my true understanding of God, and that there is a force and intelligence watching over me in a sense and leading me. But the understanding that I have of God was much different than everyone that I'm looking at in the church. And I started to get this sense of everyone else's feelings, like loving, welcoming, but afraid to go to hell and confused by the doctrine and dogma that they've been fed their whole lives. That doesn't make sense because it's been infiltrated and changed and the messages have been lost. And it was the simple messages came to me. It is Christ's teachings. It's as simple as, love thy neighbor. It's as simple as everything that we learn from the teachings of Christ. That's what it's about. That's the key. But it's, that's not the only way to come to those understandings. Every belief system has those puzzle pieces, and we're not going to figure it out unless we put them together. And I think each theological belief system is its own puzzle piece, and they all lead to the same understanding of that ultimately everything is source, everything is God from source, everything is love, and that is the way to God, and that's the way. And I got the understanding also that I don't have to do this life experience again now that I've come to this understanding and am implementing those teachings in my life. And it's that simple. That's all I've been here thousands of times because I couldn't get that one concept down. And now that I understood it, it was like, oh, I can go home now. And it was such a beautiful thing. And I also came to the understanding that although you can get to the same place through many different belief systems, the teachings of Jesus are probably one of the easiest ways to understand that. And it's no mystery why, the Bible is still the most popular book, widely read book in the world. And that is for a reason. I do believe that there is a lot of infiltration and changes made to suit those in powers, but I think the fundamental teachings of JC still stand. And that is, what resonates with me, and it always has. And it made me just understand that I should share that with some of these people, maybe even the preacher, share my understandings a little bit. And that's part of what everything was about, is to not only get all these understandings for my own spiritual growth, but to talk about it here on the show and maybe help others, especially Christians that are stuck in these theological beliefs that they're going to burn in hell if they don't follow a certain doctrine, when in reality you get infinite chances to do this. It may suck coming back to do it, but if you get those teachings right, then you can go back home, or you can come back and share it's a life experience game, really, and that's what this was all about. And this experience led me to at least that understanding. And I think it's a very powerful spiritual foundation for me right now. And it's helping me navigate everything and understanding the concepts that people are coming on and talking about, and seeing where they may have misunderstandings and integrating things that make sense to me in my belief system, and just helping others that are looking for the information to possibly give them different angles and insights into it. And I'm incredibly grateful for that experience. And that was the May the 4th experience.
That was me. One question I have for you is, when you say you think you came back here, do you think you've come back as this life as Chris before? Or do you mean like past lives or future selves? Because I feel like a lot of times that like I've come back as this version of me many times, like, and I keep doing something wrong. Like, and I, because I have a lot of deja vu experiences that make me think that there's like parallel realities, or maybe, like is that what you were kind of saying? Or
I think it's all, man. I think it's maybe all unfolding at the same time. Different versions of ourselves, but only slight differences, maybe, but the same lives over and over again till we get it right. Maybe it's different changes depending on the decisions we make in that version of ourselves throughout the multiverse. Even what we would consider past lives, even if time isn't linear, if we're living different people's lifetimes, maybe we can pick up on that as well. But the vision I saw was that, yes, this very experience where I'm Chris Mathieu, maybe different versions of it, like thousands of them, until in one of them, I got it. I figured out that one thing that I was supposed to figure out.
That's fascinating. And so where do you think you'll go, like, once you leave here? Like, do you think do you have any theories of what we'll do, or
No,
maybe what you'll do?
I don't. I really, I have the faith, knowing, and ultimate understanding that whatever happens after this is going to be going home. It's going to be a going home experience. I think this reality is more of a dream than anything. I think we immerse ourselves in this experience to learn and grow. And when we exit, it'll be just like waking up from a dream. And, I'm convinced that we go on in whatever form, whether it's, light or just our consciousness, but we're going to go on. And, whether we're met by angels or our relatives, I couldn't tell you. I've had, I'm currently producing the film Doors of Perception, which covers the profound connections between near-death experiences, psychedelic states, meditation, and what we consider extraterrestrial or angelic or interdimensional contact, basically contact with non-human intelligences, and how those are very strongly connected. The experiences have overlaps, and how they all seem to have profound effects in people's lives, life-changing effects. Mostly, I'd say in the majority of the case, it's very beneficial. I will cover the dark side, though, too, the negative experiences with extraterrestrials and things like that. But for the most part, it benefits people's lives when they have these very profound experiences. And they all seem to have this aspect to it where you are communicating with an intelligence that is guiding you in some way. And as far as my understanding is, what was guiding me was my higher self, but it's also just a higher version of myself. And I think there are higher versions until we get to what we call source. And I think we're all connected to that. If you want to say fractals of that, I know it's been a term thrown around in the metaphysical woo-woo community, but I think it stands that there is a source of everything that is fractalized in for experience, and each fractal is to grow and to learn from. We are each like a tendril or a feeler for this one experiential intelligence, and we have free will to do what we want with it. We experience whatever we want, and this central intelligence learns from it and grows from it. And we individually learn how we want to go as far as positivity or negativity, what we want to be, if we want to align with darkness or light. And we learn from those experiences. And I think ultimately, since we are from light, we're going to gravitate back towards that. There may have been a point where we've been separated or not, or fractalized very far from that source. And that leads to darkness, degenerate behavior, evil, wars. But I think I am of the belief that we're reaching a point where we're coming back, and there's going to be less and less of those dark fractals, and we're deciding that we want to be integrated back into the light because we've been pushed so far back from it. So that was a little bit of tangent, but
Yeah, I love that, man. I agree 100%. I guess to change the subject, that was amazing, by the way. But you also wanted to talk about that some truth seekers are actually unknowingly becoming like agents for the Matrix. Did you want to talk about that a little bit? I found that really interesting.
yes, I will preface that with this is a theory. It's a possibility out in the universe, and we are just speculating here. This is a live action role play, and in no way do I think that people are what you would say being possessed or that there's NPCs out there. But I think that we are all connected to this information field, and the information field has parasites. Whether the parasites are part of the system, like naturally they're supposed to be there to help us, learn, navigate the darkness. But whatever they are, whether they are a parasite from outside the source and they're coming to infect us and get us to do bad things, which you'd call demons or whatever, I think they're just negative parasitic intelligences. But what's happening is, and what's been happening is, you have these, attachments, and they feed off of certain behaviors, certain feelings, certain actions, negativity mostly, and it causes you to react to this. And they have certain physical, like microscopic parasites that can cause you to crave sugar, can cause you to have mental illness. So it's the same thing with these etheric parasites. And actually, it could be as above, so below. The etheric parasites may be metaphysical representations of the physical parasites. If you've ever looked at a parasite under a microscope, what do they look like? Little aliens or little demons. So it's very interesting when you get into that micro macro aspect of it. But I think we're all essentially infected with some sort of parasites, etheric or otherwise. I think there's even probably technological parasites that we are unaware of. And it just depends on what we're interacting with. Negativity, if we're focused all day online, scrolling through Facebook, making negative comments or putting posts up to trigger people, having troll-like behavior, that is a reaction from a fundamental problem that is coming from within. And I believe that these negative parasites work for the dark side of the Matrix, if you will. Now, my current understanding of the Matrix, it's very limited, as it should be, but I don't believe this is that we're trapped here in like a loose harvesting farm and archons have taken over our reality. I think they're a part of our reality. I think we have to learn from them. I think we're more powerful from them. I think they work for us, but we're not supposed to know that. But whatever it is, they try and get us to go down the dark side, try and trick us. but it's all basically a learning experience in this life game. That's my current perception. But if you fall for it, if you start to align with the parasitic ideologies, you start to work for it. And I think these are part of the system. These are part of our biological matrix code, if you will. And if you get sucked too deep in, say, some dark conspiracy, or drugs is a good example. This can very much cause people to act towards that parasitic nature. But right now, what I see happening in like the truth community is there are people, a lot of people, even some that have been here for a while, but a lot of them have just started to kind of wake up to things. And I'm noticing the ones that are doing this don't have much of a spiritual foundation. They don't look at what's happening behind our perception, behind the scenes, a bigger picture, a spiritual picture of what is unfolding in our reality. And they look at it in a very material way. And this causes madness, especially right now in the atmosphere that we're in 2024. Started in, of course, after COVID, but we've reached a progressive state where they've weaponized conspiracy theories and the broadcasters and independent media that are talking about them. Now, because of all this unfolding, I had to make a disclaimer on my show saying this is for entertainment purposes only. The views of my guests do not reflect that of my own. This is a live action role play because I'm going to cover my ass for what is to come in the future. I believe they're setting us up to make discussing these things illegal, to ban any type of open, free thought and open-minded thinking and discussions like these from the internet and any type of broadcast airwaves. And the way they're doing this is poisoning our community with, they put a piece of bad information out there, a video clip of something provocative, but guess what? It may not even be real. And there's no evidence to back up where it came from, who originally posted it, if it's AI or not. The AI is a whole different demon that we have to worry about. But the information gets spread through this community because these people that are just coming on, even unfortunately people who have been around a while that I'm very disappointed in, are just jumping on bad information and spreading it as if it were truth, with no disclaimer. No, this is theory. No, this is possibility. No, this is the way things are. And we need to react to it. And it causes madness. It causes chaos. And it is going to cause the downfall of this community if it keeps going this way. And not only that, it's causing division. It's causing anger. There are people that are reacting to, or who see what's unfolding, and they're reacting to it in a very angry way, in a very negative way. And it's just causing infighting. And the lack of compassion these days is very disturbing, especially when it comes to people who are just trying to figure out the truth. So that's the way I see things going right now. It's very disturbing. And when you throw in politics and people who still have their heartstrings attached to the political theatrical system, this is going to make it even worse. I checked out of politics a long time ago. I see, Team False Orange Messiah versus the Pantsuit Succubus. They're both part of the same system. And either way, it's going to be a roll towards dystopia. We may have a slower roll with one versus the other, but it's all towards the same direction. It's all anti-human. And none of the policies that we have ever seen are going to benefit us in our individual lives. Now, they may harm us. We may see a lot of negative changes with either way that we're going to go. But I think what's happened in 2020 and beyond is a greater force that is pushing people to awaken, pushing people to put on their big boy pants and not rely on the system anymore. Have some accountability and rely on ourselves for a change instead of voting for some politician that you believe is going to make changes that'll benefit you in some way, when in reality they're in a lizard's pocket and they're working for the lizard people. So it's all going to be very interesting whenever you look at the ways things could unfold. They have theological and biblical implications creeping into our politics. We've got Team Jesus versus Team Satan now. Trump is telling Christians, I heard him say this in a speech the other day, that, Christians, go out to vote. And if Christians, you go out to vote this time, you'll never have to vote again. We're going to have this all taken care of. Now, I don't know what the hell that means, but it's interesting. So we go to the other side, and then you have Kamala at a rally, and someone yells out in the back, Jesus is king. And she says, you're at the wrong rally. Now, I don't care what your belief system is. That doesn't seem like a very presidential thing to say, especially when you're on the campaign trail. And the majority of the country, as far as I know, is still Christian. So whatever what the implications of that are, there's more and more of this, that if you vote for Trump, you're voting for God. If you vote for Kamala, their side believes you're voting for do whatever you want, be a cat, screw whoever you want, be a pedophile, and that's going to be our United States for Kamala. And basically, I see degeneracy and evil on that side, and it's very blatant. They don't even hide it. And then you look at Trump's side, and it's very appealing for those of us who have morals and who don't want to be sucked into this total dystopian nightmare. It seems great on the surface, but the man is a gold false idol worshiping, degenerate, sexual degenerate mobster. And if you really think that he's a Christian and has turned to God and is going to save us and be the new Messiah, I don't know. You just might want to check out his past and question his relationship with Israel a little bit. But that's just me. So I'm going to sit back and watch everything unfold and take care of myself and take care of my family, and keep speaking my piece. And hopefully somebody out there is listening, and maybe those that are still on the fence that the political system is a parasitic system, maybe they'll consider things differently. I don't know.
Yeah. We had a really good question. This one's from Kits Lyle. I think this is regarding in regards to everything he says. He says, do you feel like we're in a time loop?
Time loop. Well, I don't know what you'd mean by a time loop.
Because I think he meant, because we were saying like that we both feel like we've
reincarnated. Okay. No, I just think that we're just living multiple existences at the same time. I really don't think we're trapped in any way. I know that's a popular belief right now because of all the craziness that's happening. We have a resurgence of the Gnostic belief system and different considerations that surround that. But I really don't. I did for a while. For a while I was like, man, we could be reptilian food for the archons. But I really don't feel that way anymore. I think it's about perspective in life and the afterlife. I think life is what you make it. It can be hell on earth, or it could be a paradise on earth, depending on what you're going to do with your life. So that's just the way I feel.
Yeah, Emma the Cat and Friends says, she says she feels similar to that. She says she feels like we're in a strange reality that is then different than the core reality. She doesn't know how to describe it. It's weird, right? And Asimo backs you up on the politics thing. He says, exactly, Chris, for people that hate genocide and Holocaust, both sides look terrible. How can I call myself awakened or awakening when I endorse mass murder and mostly of children?
100%, man. And I'm not going to say like I have the answers for a utopian system that we can live in, but I know that this system, we can do better than this. We can do better than what we're subjecting ourselves and agreeing to right now. All we have to do is get into a different way of thinking. Right now, we're obeying a system that is built to benefit the powerful, the rich, and the evil. and we are under its wing, and we're feeding it, and we're working for it. And until we realize that, we can't break out of it, because there's too many people just comfortable with it. Oh, I get that matrix steak every day, I'm cool, I get to have a nice living, I get all my fancy toys because I'm working for the matrix system. And that's another thing I find. If you align with some of the things that are quote unquote popular these days in the mainstream, you're probably going to do well. If you're going out there and you're pumping out fear porn on YouTube and all the fantastic things that people are flocking to right now when on social media, you'll probably do very well. But if you're talking about things like we're talking about now, I'll be honest, dude. I am not in the hundreds of thousands of views and downloads like a lot of these popular podcasters. I do well enough to pay my bills, and that's it. And on YouTube, I get maybe 25 to 100 views a video. And of course, I got kicked off of YouTube a while back, but we started a new channel last year, and it's only grown to 1,000 subscribers in a year, and I'm getting 50 to 100 views. And even on the podcast, the numbers seem to be being manipulated. I couldn't say that for sure, but it seems that there are people who are being silenced if they're talking about rational shit.
Yeah, what was weird was I would just say last I've been really focusing on the audio podcast, because I saw that the money's better with the audio than it is for video, and I had a really good month last month of Spreaker. Then this month it seemed like the ad revenue went down, and I was getting the same amount of impressions. Now what I figured is I said, well, maybe they're showing different ads on different months. Like maybe one month they have ads that pay more, and then this month they have ads that don't pay as much, because I can't make sense of why this month wouldn't be as good as last month when I'm getting the same amount of impressions. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. It's weird. It's almost like it makes you feel like it's being manipulated. Yeah, right. Was yours similar to that, your experience, or?
Yeah, I think there's manipulation all around. Even I've seen strange things happen on Rumble, and I know this is supposed to be a free speech platform, and like I said, I have no proof of any of this, but if I go and look around at people that are talking about things in a similar responsible fashion and presenting it as theories, a lot of these channels, even if they were big before COVID, they were doing well, because a lot of these things didn't matter. You could be successful talking about this stuff before COVID, or even before 2018, when all the stuff started really getting censored. But you have people who I respect, who had big followings before, that now they have no growth on any of their channels. And you try and start new, and you're doing things, you're trying to do the best you can do, get good information, and you're halted from the get-go. And you can go look at, even, I see the same thing with Rex's channel. He got halted right away. A few others, Jay Widener, Riderly. It's like, certain people cannot grow because they're talking about things that are quote unquote dangerous to the ruling class. But they've thrown out things, so much misinformation, to where they're propping up certain conspiracies that are just going to lead people in the wrong direction, and it leads people away from the important things. And I think the important things are taking care of what's in your life, healing yourself, finding a spiritual path, trying to understand what's best for you and your family, and sharing that with other people who are willing to hear it. Because you can't go up to somebody who's not ready to hear any of this stuff and try and have a conversation with. It does not work. You have to wait for them to come to you, and then you share what you've done in your life to get better. And it's a 100th monkey effect, and it's contagious, and it affects everybody on a very large scale. And it's kind of like a leading by example thing. And I have hope that this is going to continue, because I see more and more people doing this, but it's becoming difficult because there's a reaction from the ruling class, from the matrix system, that is pushing out everything that's causing the chaos. So it's difficult to navigate. But I would just say that be open-minded, but do your due diligence and research as much as you can. And if you're going to present information, present it that you can't prove in any way, present it as a theory or a possibility and not a fact. And that would cause, that would really save a lot of people a lot of what could possibly coming down the road with future censorship, or even, like I said, making conspiracies illegal. So it's a wild west, man. We're in some crazy times, but I'm having a good time with it.
Yeah, I saw even something Kamala said. She said that she said something like she was going to, if she got elected, she was going to crack down on people who are putting out misinformation. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, how could how could that be? How could that be legal? I mean, in a country where we're supposed to have the right to free speech, that's one of the first. It's like one of the First Amendments, right? It's
Well,
like
they're
the
trying
right.
to pass a bill. You'll have to look up the specifics of it, but I heard Joe Rogan and Sam Tripoli talking about it today, and it's basically, it gives our government the right to declare martial order and kill any citizens that speak against government policies, and they're trying to get this passed right now.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
insane. What kind of like dystopia are we coming to? It's crazy, right?
That's it, man. I just think you got to have your spiritual armor, if you will, for what's coming down the road. I don't see us getting out of it with at least a little bit of a struggle, a little bit of chaos. I do think if we can, on the other side, there's going to be beautiful things happening, because it's inevitable. There's more and more people that are waking up. There's going to be some that refuse to. And I just see that as we're just going to kind of split as different societies. We're going to have the people who want the smart cities and their technocratic society and be plugged into the matrix all the time, and then there's those of us who just want to live our lives in harmony with nature and thrive as a human being without being subjected to these systems. And what I see is possibility is, we're just going to split off into different timelines, and those of us will be living our lives in different parts of the world, and then they'll have that matrix system. But who knows, we may reach a more enlightened collective in sometime in the future, but we'll just have to see, I guess.
Yeah. And before we go, I was going to ask you real quick, but where are you at with your new documentary? I know you talked about it a little bit, but it sounds really interesting. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's probably going to be about 2 hours this time, but yeah, Doors of Perception. I'm getting towards the final stages of editing. I have one more interview to do before closing out the filming part of it. But then we'll finish up editing hopefully by the end of December, and I'm hoping for early January release on the streaming platforms. So that's where we're at now. And by the way, everyone, great ways to help support us and help us finish this film is to go watch our first film, the Forbidden documentary, Occult Louisiana. That is on Tubi and multiple other streaming platforms. So we appreciate y'all go and check that out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I might go watch it again myself. I know I watched it before, but like it's so interesting because I love the whole idea of New Orleans and how paranormal it is. I'd love to go down there. And you're from that area, right? Like you're
Yeah.
from New Orleans.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole reason I made that one. I'm from just about 40 minutes south of New Orleans and been there multiple times. But I learned more than I ever knew about the paranormal history just during the making of this film than I ever did growing up. So, yeah, go check that out. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you so much, Chris. And yeah, do you want to tell everybody how else they can find you and all that stuff? And I have all your links in the description, but yeah.
For sure. Yeah, thank you again, Rob. This is a great conversation. Definitely love to do it again. Got to get you back on my show. So you can find Forbidden Knowledge News on all podcast platforms. We are on Rumble, we're on Rokfin, and we are also we're back on YouTube, like I said, and we got the usual social medias, X, Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz, and we're even on TikTok. We got kicked off of TikTok too the other day.
Dude, I got banned on TikTok. I had to start a new account.
Yeah, I did too. I started a new account the other day, but we're on TikTok again too. So thank you, Rob. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was awesome, man. And thank you so much, and thank you everybody, and yeah, thanks, Chris.